Okay. This is Joyce Tice, and I'm talking to Ben Garrison at the History Center. It is December 2015. It's almost Christmas, and it's about going to be 70 degrees out tomorrow.
Yeah.
Having a warm Christmas. And I interviewed Ben and his sister Ann several years ago and had a problem with the recording. So Ben's given me a chance to do it again.
Do it again. Okay.
And one of the things we want to talk about is the history of Garrison's men's shop.
Yes.
And he's brought some things to show us. So go ahead,
Okay.
Ben.
Well, I'm not sure where to start. Garrison's men's shop started with Garrison and Myers in 1938. And there's the ad that came out.
And before that, it had belonged to Mort Shepherd, right?
Yes, that's right.
And it went back quite a bit, back to 1886 under various ownership.
Yeah. So we were in business for over 100 years, that store was.
Uh-huh.
The store was successful all the way through until Mr. Shepherd, during the 30s, when all of the banks were failing. The bank next door to Mr. Shepherd's Short, he was a successful man, but the bank made a mistake.
That was the Grange National Bank?
Yeah. There was a group of men down in Philadelphia that would buy a building with the idea of reselling it and making money. Well, they didn't have any money to work with, so they came to the Grange National Bank and wrote a check. They had one there for $67,000.
Wow, that
now,
was
at that
a
time,
lot of money.
That was a lot of money.
And this was right next door there where Cummings Jewelers is now.
Yes, that's correct. Right where Cummings Jewelry is now. And that floor is still the same bank floor.
And it's beautiful.
It is.
Beautiful floor.
Anyway, the bank examiner showed up and to go over their books. Well, Mr. Shepherd didn't want to see the Grange National Bank go down, so he mortgaged everything he owned and put all that money into the bank. There was another man in town that did the same thing, and I don't know his name, but they did the same thing.
I wonder if that would be in the papers, or was that kind of quiet?
I don't know. I think it was kind of quiet.
Okay.
They didn't advertise bankruptcies and things. At the same time, but the bank went under anyway, and it took everything Mr. Shepherd had acquired, his house, his business, his building.
His whole life.
His whole life was gone. And I asked my dad if did he commit suicide or did he just die out of exasperation. Dad wouldn't tell me. He just clammed up, wouldn't tell me. Anyhow.
So he died shortly after that?
Yes. He died shortly after that.
Wow.
Why or how, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Never could find out. They didn't talk about those things back then.
No, they didn't.
So, the First Citizens Bank owned the building and the business, and my dad was going to run it for them for a while. And he put on this sale that I have here.
Wow, July clearance sale.
Interesting to see the prices.
It's a beautiful poster. Beautiful.
I found this in Dad's stuff when after he'd passed.
Sure.
And I had it preserved. Anyway, he put on this sale and raised enough money to pay off Mrs. Shepherd's house so that she has that clear.
Mm-hmm.
But then the store was going to be sold. The bank didn't want to run it anymore.
Right.
So Dad wanted to buy it, and Mother, my father and mother both, they wanted to buy it. Dad could buy the business, but he didn't have enough to buy the building, and he didn't want to pay rent to somebody. So what's to do? Well, it was December when this came up, and which is Christmas time.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Myers was a teacher at the college, and he belonged to the wrong political party. At that time, when the Democrats came in, all Republicans were let go.
Yep.
If Republicans came in, all Democrats were let go.
Yep.
Well, he belonged to the wrong party, and he lost his job up at the college. He came in to my dad. They knew each other. It wasn't, and he said, Mr. Garrison, he said, would you need any help through December? It's your busy time. And Dad kind of thought a little bit. He says, this store is going to be up to business, up for sale. And he told him that he could buy the business or he could buy the building, but he couldn't buy both. He said, if you'd go in partners with me and put up your house, I'll put up my house, and we'll have enough collateral that we can buy the business and the building.
Wow. Both sides
And
of
so
it, or
then-
just the one half?
Just half of it.
Half of it.
Just half of it.
Yeah.
So that's what they did. Okay? So they went in partners, and that's where Garrison and Myers came in.
Okay.
And then in 1950, Mr. Myers got sick,
Oh.
and he couldn't keep up with his share of the thing. And so they, still in their friendship, they said, Dad says, well, you buy it or I'll buy it. Buy each partner out.
Sure.
Mr. Myers had a daughter, and Merle Garrison had 2 sons. So Mr. Myers says, you got 2 sons, you buy me out. And Mr. Myers then went into the insurance business at his house, and my dad bought the store.
Good. And ran it right up until?
Up until, what was it?
Up until 1970, 88.
1988, yeah.
And then that,
And then David Allen bought it, and he
okay.
went out.
Uh-huh. But there's
lost the
still a
business.
Garrison's over in Wellsboro.
Still a Garrison's in Wellsboro, yes. My brother died, but his son is running it.
Okay. Now, you were telling me, you and Ann were telling me some really good stories about some of the goings-on in the business district. There was an issue of rodents, I recall. Do you remember that story?
No.
Napoleon Sowers put rat poison down in...
Oh, rats. Yeah. We had a grocery store about 2 doors down from our store, and it attracted rats. I mean, they put garbage out back and all. Well, those walls down in the basement have holes through them for pipes and wires and things to go to store. And rats would travel back and forth. Well, Mr. Sowers kept his extra supply of candy down there, and then he'd bring up what he needed to keep filling his case. And the rats got into his candy and was eating it. He got disgusted. So he put out rat poison, just the old-fashioned rat poison. And we had a stinking mess. Those rats would get in the walls and die.
All
and
up and down the
at
block.
them.
All up and down the block.
Up and down the block. You couldn't get at them. We'd find them on the floor dead.
Oh, God.
The new modern rat poison, they go to water.
Right,
Then you can get them.
right.
But back then, they just died wherever they were at.
So that must have lasted quite a while.
So that was about 3 weeks.
Wow.
We had to spray the store and everything else. Take care of that.
That's awful. And then you said that the business people used to go out to the back alley, and what did they do? They played cards or something. You told me that they did out in the back alley. Some kind of gambling or something. I don't recall the details.
I remember we used to have cakewalks
Yeah?
to attract attention.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's not what I meant. But what? Tell me, what's a cakewalk?
Okay, well,
Kind of dance?
everybody, every woman that's involved has a cake, brings it in,
Oh, okay.
and people walk in a circle. It's kind of like musical chairs.
Okay.
And when the music stops, you sit down,
Okay.
and somebody wins and gets a cake
All right.
of their choice. Then you get up, walk again,
Get another cake.
get another. Somebody else gets a cake.
Okay.
It was just to attract attention.
Sure. Promotional
Yeah,
thing.
promotional thing.
Yeah. So, tell me, how did men's clothing styles change during the time that you were in business? Or did they stay pretty much the same?
They didn't. Men's styles don't change
Yeah.
very much.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't change very much.
Now, you went to elementary school in Mansfield.
Up
You
at
went
the
to
college.
the yellow brick,
Yeah,
the yellow building.
I did. Yes.
And you went to the high school.
Yes. Mansfield High School.
What year did you graduate?
Oh, heavens.
Well, I've got it someplace on record, but not in my
Yeah.
head.
I couldn't tell you right off.
Now show us.
Wait, 1943.
Okay, well that sounds right because you said that you had grown up with Les Evans,
Yeah.
who just died.
He was a year ahead, behind me.
Yep, he graduated in 44.
I
So-
graduated in 43 and he graduated in 44.
Okay.
Yes.
And tell us about this article you brought here.
Oh.
This.
That is made out of salesman's samples.
I'm going to
of
hold it up. I'm a
neckties.
little close to the camera. You'll hold it up here?
Yeah.
There.
They're neckties samples
Isn't that beautiful?
called necktie silks. Lois made this.
Wow. That is a pretty thing. And you said she wore it.
She wore
At-
it during the centennial,
Uh-huh.
when Mansfield had its centennial.
Isn't that beautiful? So what have you done since you retired from the clothing business?
Oh, I've done a lot of things. We moved to Florida, and I worked for decorators
Okay.
for about 8 years. So he just wants attention. For about 8 years. And I worked on a stepladder all the time.
Oh, wow.
I hung up everything you could think of.
Drapes and wallpaper.
All kinds of stuff for decorators.
Sure.
When they go into a house and do
Sure.
it, and I worked for them. Got along fine. Now I'm doing chair caning.
Mm-hmm. I've seen you demonstrate it.
Yeah, I'm chair caning now. And
And-
they keep me quite busy.
Do they?
Yep,
Excellent.
quite busy.
How many chairs do you do in a year, roughly?
Oh, it varies. I used to do a lot more than I do now because I think I'm kind of getting caught up on it a little bit.
So tell me a little bit about growing up in Mansfield. What kind of things, where did you live when you were growing up?
Well, that could be another nice story.
Okay.
Okay, I got a story for you. I was about, I don't know, 13 or 14. Maybe I was 14 years old. And I lived down on St. James Street, the house that my father bought. He bought it in 1926. I was a year old, and he paid the ridiculously high price of $4,000 for that house.
That was high. It was.
At that time, 1926.
Yes.
But he not only paid for it, he paid it. Had a mortgage, he paid the mortgage off. That was my dad. He was. Anyway, when I was about 14, we didn't have air conditioning. We didn't have TV. We didn't have any video games. Us kids had to make our own entertainment outdoors, most of it. Down the street from us, about 3 doors down, was Mr. Lloyd Smith, who was very much liked by everybody up and down the street. But he had a problem he didn't like. Every spring, when the snow melted off, he would get a cellar full of water.
Oh, boy.
He was right near a little creek,
Mm-hmm.
and he'd have to scrub and clean the cellar every year, and I know he, after a while, got pretty sick of that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the next house up from him was up on a bank about 3 feet high, and they didn't get water in their cellar. It belonged to Liza Robinson. She and her husband, as happens, they passed, and the house went on the sale. And Mr. Smith bought it with the idea of moving from his house that flooded to the one that didn't.
3 feet up the hill.
That's about it. It was just up on enough bank
Right.
that they didn't get water in their cellar, so he bought that house. Now, we kids played out in the road in the summer when it was nice. We played in the street because there's no traffic.
Right.
At 6 o'clock, everything closed down.
Yep.
Stores, everything. There was a movie theater, and there was church on Wednesday and Sunday evening.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. So we played in the street under the street lights. Well, there was me and my brother and another boy. I don't know who he was, but we were headed down the street to go see if we could find 4 or 5 more and go play a game of kick the can or hide and go seek or whatever we invented
Right.
at the time. And as we came abreast Mr. Smith's house, he came out the front door with an armful and headed up into Liza Robinson's house that he had bought. What possessed us kids, I don't know. His front door was open. So we walked into his house, picked up an armful of stuff, and carried it up the street, one door to
Well,
Liza
that was
Robinson's
nice
house.
of you.
And then we went back down and got another armful.
Wow.
Just, I don't know why. We
Was
wanted
looking
something to
for
do anyway.
So
Now,
you saw
after about
something
this-
that needed to be done.
About after the next, nobody scolded us, nobody hollered, said don't do that. They just let us, and after about the second or third trip, a couple that lived near there, they saw what we were doing, and they came over. It was a man and woman. And pretty soon another one showed up. More. And after a while, it must have been about 25 people.
Wow.
We carried Mr. Smith's house, interior stuff, up to that other house. And by 9 o'clock, we had him moved.
Well, now that's a preference over getting in trouble, isn't it?
Yeah,
Just go out and
we
do a
just,
good deed.
just did a good deed. It was the darndest thing. We didn't move his piano. He said, no, don't move that. I'll get a professional man to come and take care of that. But we moved the beds,
Wow.
his kitchen, everything that was movable that we could pick up and handle. Took his beds apart and teared them
Well, he
up.
must have been grateful.
Well, I'm asking he was. He just stood at the door and said, "You put that there, and you put this
Wow. This small town's great.
here."
You know, that's...
Yeah. And there was no organization.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have to have insurance.
Didn't have to have a permit.
No, we didn't have to have a permit.
Or working papers.
Yeah, that's right. We were kids.
Yeah,
They
just
didn't,
helping out.
They just let us work.
Wow, that is wonderful.
That's a true story.
I believe it.
I'm involved in that one.
I believe it. Yeah, most of the stories people tell me are about all the trouble they got in.
That wasn't trouble we got in that time. Oh, we weren't little angels. None of us kids were, but we didn't get into trouble.
Well, that's good. Well, I've got to check my time on this. Yeah, I'm getting kind of a little low on the time on this, but do you have any other interesting stories? What about the high school? Who were some of your teachers?
Don't remember.
Yeah, you know,
It's all in my yearbook.
Yeah, I used to remember that stuff. I don't remember much about them
No.
either. I remember who they were, but
Yeah,
those things fade.
no, I couldn't tell you.
So you and Lois live up on Orbed Road? No.
Bullock Road,
Bullock Road, okay. Okay.
North Bullock Road.
Okay. Are you going to any more fairs this year, like the Heritage
No.
thing? Yeah, that's kind
No,
of
it's
exhausting.
getting to be too much for me. See,
Yeah.
I'm 90 years old.
Are you really?
Yeah, and it's just too much. I just can't handle it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I see this already. You just can't do some of the things you used to do.
No, that's right.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm caning chairs, but I can work at my own speed.
sure.
2 hours and quit. When you're at a show, you got to stay there for 6 hours.
I know. And it's hard on concrete floors and everything.
Yeah.
It's just too difficult.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Ben, I really appreciate that you came in and let me re-interview you. And I just feel so bad because we had such a good interview with you and Ann, and that was a great interview. But now we've recovered some of those stories.
Yep.
Well, thank you.
Yep.